It is Friday, October 26th. I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. Wes, cold open question of the day for you. The Detroit Pistons, our beloved Detroit Pistons, for the record, they got a technical foul in their first game of the season because they had 6 men on the court at one point. Did that shake your confidence at all in the Detroit Pistons and them being a normal NBA franchise this year?
I can't say it made me feel good about the amount of money that I have placed on their over. Can't say that made me feel awesome. But you know what, Chris? That's what the first game is all about. I always said the preseason isn't long enough in the NBA to work out all these things. So,
everyone just wants 10 preseason games against like random third division teams from like the Middle East or Europe. You know, that's what we really need.
Just as long as they got that out of their system in the first game, I think we'll be okay. You know what? All jokes aside, they actually looked pretty good against the Pacers.
They did.
They didn't get the win, but they did look pretty good.
They looked pretty good, more competent, functional, but the way JB Bickerstaff was yelling was a face I've seen on that man dozens, hundreds of times, and I was like, this man is... I know I can guarantee you that this is driving him absolutely insane.
It's almost harder to do that.
It's incredible. Guys.
This is not the NFL where you don't have to. You don't have a scores table in the NFL, so like you're always making these substitutions, play to play. You know, are we in dime? Are we in nickel? Are we in base? Like whatever, and you just got guys like running on and off the field, based on what the offense is doing or whatever. But in the NBA, you literally have to go to the scores table. They have to tell you it's okay to check in. How do you even do this? I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
Yeah, you know, I actually learned via looking to read about this, and I have some stuff saved to like see what quotes were said. I learned that James Edwards is now in the Knicks beat now, which like kind of like bummed me out because I think his Pistons coverage was incredible, and I was like, I love when like a random team like that has a great beat, but he has bigger market. I get why he's in that job now, but I was just like, to your point, I was like, I don't think I'd ever seen that before in an NBA game. You know, I was just perplexed that they pulled that off. If I had to also like, if that was a prop bet, I would have been like the Brooklyn Nets or the Wizards are going to be the team that does this year. You know, and I didn't have the Pistons under JB Bickerstaff on night one. That was not on my bingo card.
Not sure it was even on the BetMGM bingo card. So it's okay.
Yeah, everyone got caught off guard in the Instagram comments that I saw in the clips were absolutely ruthless. But on today's show, we're going to take you through our format for what we're going to do this season. We've got 3 takes. Wes has a Celtics take. I've got an Anthony Davis take. And then we have a topic you guys picked for us, the Orlando Magic. So Wes has a take on the Magic. That's coming up today on a new episode of the Just Basketball Show. What is up, everyone? This is the Just Basketball Show for Friday, October 25th. I am Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. If you haven't already, follow, rate, review on your podcast app platform of choice. Hit subscribe on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. And check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and X. And Wes, you're going to tell us about one of today's sponsors, BetMGM.
That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball, and you'll get up to 1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android and sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. And then you're going to receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's dive in. Take number 1. You have apparently joined the Boston media mafia with this take. Talk to me about Jayson Tatum.
I can't believe I'm doing this. What did I last? 3 days? Not 2 days of the NBA season?
We didn't get through the first week of the NBA season. We saw one, admittedly, very good Boston Celtics performance. One of the takes on my short list was going to be, I had a Celtics take on my short list before I went with something else. And then, you went even hotter than I was going to go, more deep into the...
I don't know what your Celtics take was, but if your Celtics take was that the Boston Celtics should be the favorites to win the championship, that's not news. So
I was going to... I was gonna cook myself for being like picking the Sixers and just like overthinking the entire thing and working myself into a shoot that the Boston Celtics aren't the best team in the NBA. Like that's where I got to. I was just mad at myself more than anything.
I don't want to make sweeping conclusions based off of opening week. I think that's a thing that you don't really want to do. That said, I also think we might have come to a conclusion beforehand that Jayson Tatum should not or could not necessarily be in the MVP conversation. There's been a lot of sort of who's the favorites to win MVP, all this kind of talk before the season, and it doesn't feel like Jayson Tatum ever really was part of that conversation. So here's my first take of the podcast, Chris. We haven't given enough credence to Jayson Tatum as a real MVP candidate. What he did against the Knicks, to me, shows a leveling up of Jayson Tatum, even from last year. I mean, last year, it just felt like Jayson Tatum was starting to explore these new corners of his game, where it was him bringing the ball up, him initiating offense, him shooting threes at a higher volume, him trying to get to the basket more. And he was doing it fairly well. He had a rough playoffs a little, from a shooting perspective, although from a playmaking perspective, and we pointed this out a lot during the course of their playoff run, he was a great facilitator. He was the hub of their entire offense and a very big reason why they ended up winning the championship. And not to say anything of what he's done defensively, which is immense last year and will be this year. But Jayson Tatum is a playmaker. He had 10 assists in that game against the New York Knicks. He had one pass coming off of a screen and then whipping it with his left hand to Derek White in the above the break on the opposite side of the floor for an open three-pointer. Like, his vision, his timing, his confidence in being the point guard of that team is pretty astounding considering where this guy was even 2 or 3 years ago. It has been a gradual increase in his playmaking duties since he's got drafted by the Celtics. And of course, you remember when he first got there was Kyrie Irving and all these other players. And then they have Marcus Smart there, who's sort of the de facto point guard, and he's empowered to bring the ball up. And then they trade Marcus Smart, and then they're kind of going through, okay, is it Tatum? Is it Drew Holiday? Is it Derek White? Is it Jaylen Brown on some possessions? And it feels like they have settled on Jayson Tatum based on the proof of concept that was the 2024 championship. And he just looks so confident. He had a 30% usage in that Knicks game. I think that's about where it's going to hover for the entire season. And in Boston's offense, that's pretty high. But it is also the usage rating associated with an MVP candidate, with an all NBA type of player. It's right there with Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he's going to be there. And I haven't even mentioned the 37 points on 14 of 18 shooting, 8 of 11 from three-point range. Now, that's not going to be every single night, but there is no doubting this dude's ability to get a bucket. And now you combine that with the two-way ability of what he does defensively. He's basically positionless. He can play center for them in some alignments. And then with the playmaking stuff, this guy is the hub of Boston's offense. He's what makes it move. And I think if you take him out of it, it falls apart and it's just not the same anymore. He's as important to the Boston Celtics as he is to maybe any other team, any other offense in the league, maybe short of like Luka and Shea, what they do for Dallas and Oklahoma City. But if you take that and if he's the most important player for the team with the best record, then that sort of feels like the definition of an MVP. And so, yeah, I think we got to start putting Tatum on that short list with Luka, with Shea, with Jokic, with Giannis, with all these guys that we keep talking about. Who's going to win MVP? I think Tatum has to be squarely in that mix.
And I think, Wes, too, we're going to be able to craft, like, this is a narrative award. I've seen some people predicting, Jokic as, like, a MVP again, and being, I'm not going to pick against the guy. And, like, I understand why some people would want to make that case. I think, he's going to be statistically in the conversation. The MVP is, in a lot of ways, a narrative award. It is a storyline, what kind of story you can tell about a guy's season award. And if the Boston Celtics are far and away the best team in the league again and are, pull ahead of the pack of a lot of the teams in the East that we like Philly, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Cavs, the Magic, the Heat, like all these, they just pull away and are clearly a step ahead. They're going to be there. And this was a game where they were just absolutely, incredible. The 3-pointers as it is for them was the path. Tatum as a large part of that, at the forefront of that. They were absolutely electric. They're going to be unguardable. They're playing because of, Jaylen Brown is vocalizing this more than Tatum is, I would say. But like they're playing with an edge. I think they're finding the little bits of motivation within Tatum's Team USA experience, despite them winning a title last year, and Tatum having done that, he's like, now maybe I want this other respect. Like there is like a chip and an energy to the Celtics team that you can't take for granted, and if that was at the core of Jayson Tatum having a monster year and being in the MVP race, it wouldn't shock me now that we've kind of seen this team hit the get-go right away.
I think it's wholly ridiculous that this is being framed as a revenge tour for Jayson Tatum, for the record.
But that's what the best guys in the world do. It's like they find the slightest thing and they blow it up. Like that, like I agree that it's ridiculous.
Like winning a championship and a gold medal, and he's like, it's a revenge tour for me. I'm Jayson Tatum, and they didn't play me over LeBron and Kevin Durant and these all-timers. But whatever. Like you said, like whatever you need, dude. If this is the revenge tour you need, now, if it's him using it, that's fine. When we actually start, to me, my biggest problem with this Boston Celtics season, and I can already tell based off the first national broadcast, my biggest problem with the Celtics this year is going to be Jayson Tatum barely playing in the Olympics is the new LeBron James is 39 years old. It's every time he does anything, it's going to be the first thing out of every broadcast mouth is, can you believe that this guy only played 8 minutes in the Olympics? I'm already sick of it. I hate
There's
that
Miami West.
What?
There's Miami West is here now.
I'm back, baby.
You're back.
I hate that I'm giving the Celtics credit. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be talking about Jayson Tatum as the MVP. I know that even if you give Jayson Tatum a foot in the MVP, a foot in the door of the room of the MVP conversation, Boston Media Mafia will pry that thing wide open and make sure Jayson Tatum ends up getting this MVP, perhaps over a more deserving candidate, which is still out there. I'm not telling you, my take here isn't that Jayson Tatum will win MVP or should win MVP. It's just that when we are having the conversation, I think he's leveled up. I really do. I think Jayson Tatum has leveled up. And I don't think it's the Olympics. I don't think it's that, or not even winning finals MVP. I think what it is the confidence of coming off of that championship, raising that banner in the Boston Celtics arena and being able to say, yeah, I'm a champion. And there's, I think, a level of confidence and security that comes with that. And I don't think Jayson Tatum is going to try to be anything that he's not, where I think you could argue that maybe there were times in his career that he was. I think he just knows who he is as a basketball player, and that's a damn good basketball player. It's an all-around basketball player, and the more he leans into that, the more you're going to see nights like we saw against the Knicks.
I will add one thing to this. Last night, I think, featured two things that will be a big part of this season in some ways, a big two storylines. Well, number one, how good they were even without Porzingis. We know Porzingis isn't like vital to everything they do, but they were great without him. They're going to have to be great without him, at least until we think late December, January, sometime in there. And even then, I bet you they're careful with him. It's a long-term play for its health. So, like, if they're playing this well without him, that's another arrow in his quiver in this argument. Number two, I don't know how you felt about this, but there were times last year where it felt like Jaylen Brown was the lead guy in this team and the best guy in this team. It felt like last year in a lot of ways was Jaylen Brown's Celtics team. Game one of the season, obviously it's one game out of 82 plus the playoffs. That was Jayson Tatum's Celtics team. That was Jayson Tatum's Celtics performance. And if that is like a trend we see this year where it is more a Tatum thing and less of a Brown and Tatum thing with the supporting cast, like that is going to be another thing where if it feels more like Tatum's Celtics, that's going to be another level to this.
Yeah, right. And that is sort of reestablishing himself there. And I think most people that closely observe, you know what? I was gonna say I'm not even gonna go down that road because I actually disagree. I think there's a lot of people who do think that Jaylen Brown is the better Celtics player, and it's his team. And whatever. Like there were times last year where he was the more important player, and he won Finals MVP. I think for a reason, although I think it should have been a little bit closer in terms of the national conversation. But I guess my next thing is, am I wrong about this? Like, is this an overreaction to the first game? Is there not a world where, because of the way the Celtics are built with so much talent, that it's gonna go to a guy like Jokic, who's on a team that has lost talent over the last couple of years and is already proven that he's the best player in the world? Is it gonna go to a guy like Luka, who is the engine, the wheels, the steering wheel, the radio, everything in that car? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, ditto. And you know, there's just so many other kinds of candidates that feel like they're like the prototypical MVP candidate. Like, just tell me why I'm wrong on this.
I just don't think you're wrong. I really don't. Like, I am firmly of the mind for MVP this year that we are getting someone different. I just think with Jokic winning
I
it the
agree.
way he has won the last couple of years, with what we know, like Embiid and the Sixers are already being investigated for like how he's being not playing. Like he's not going to play a lot of games this year. That takes two massive guys off the board. I don't personally think the Bucks are going to be quite good enough for Giannis to be in the race, especially compared to some of the other candidates. So I think we're getting new blood in the MVP race this year. I think that includes Tatum, that includes Luka, that includes SGA. There's probably going to be someone we're not even thinking about now. Is there a Ja Morant MVP case if the Grizzlies go on a great run this year? You know, are there votes for like a Donovan Mitchell or like a Paolo Banchero, a team that maybe surges up the standings? Is there a Jimmy Butler MVP awards getting season somewhere in there? Heck, is there a LeBron one or Anthony Davis? Like we're gonna get something here that is different than the race we've had the last couple of years. And Tatum is the guy that we as the collective, and I think you and I did not talk enough about in making our predictions for MVP. We both picked Luka Doncic, and I think it is almost in some ways like the simplest case to make for any of these guys, and we just kind of overlooked it. So I don't think you're wrong at all.
And for the record, I'm still picking Luka, but
Yeah,
Tatum's going to be on every single ballot. And he's I think my point here is that Tatum's probably gone from who's on the ballot to who's actually got a chance to be voted first on your ballot. And I think Tatum's going to be part of that mix.
Yes. All right, let's go to our next take. We're going to get to Anthony Davis up next, but I got to tell you first about a new partner for us, and that's eBay. eBay has been a fantastic partner for our entire podcast network this year, partnering with Just Baseball on 3 incredible events, from spring trading to the All-Star Game to Wild Card Weekend. And we wanted to shout out their new Game Time Gets collection, along with the career benchmarks, league-wide records, and single-game achievements that will trigger them to drop, which you can find at ebay.com/Game Time Gets. You can find that in the show notes as well. Bidding for each card starts at 24 cents as an homage to the game's 24-second shot clock. If you look through some of these drops that are coming, there's some incredible ones. I mean, LeBron James, 1,500 career games played. That's an obvious one for me. Victor Wembanyama hitting 3 blocks and 3 3-pointers in a game just feels like it's going to happen at some point. There's Steph Curry cards. There's Jokic. There's Halliburton. There's Dame. There's Scotty Barnes. There are so many. Your favorite players are going to be in here. Wes, my favorite random one that, frankly, I probably will bid on just because it feels like a funny thing to do. Cameron Thomas reaching 250 career 3-pointers. I just feel like I should own that as the world's biggest Brooklyn Nets skeptic.
You know what? Go for it. I think if there's any way that you can make watching Cam Thomas a pleasurable experience, go for it. A guy who does not pass the ball nor see any of his teammates, you know what? That's fine.
Yeah. I think it's valid. All right, so check them out at ebay.com/Game Time Gets. All right, Wes, Anthony Davis, to me, is my take from the opening week, and here's why. I think Anthony Davis's opening night performance is the most important and impressive single-game performance we have seen this week. 38 minutes, 36 points, 13 of 15 from the line, which to me is the biggest indicator of how good he was with how aggressive he was. 16 boards, 3 blocks, 1 turnover. Davis, according to the stat head, only took this many shots in a game 7 times all of last season. To me, coming off of Team USA, and it's something he hinted at in his postgame quotes as well, looked really lean and was ready to go and in great shape after I thought he looked a little bit bulkier at times the last couple of years. Wes, I think this AD, aggressive, dominant on defense, dictating the flow in a game in this JJ Redick era, is a version of AD that can elevate the Lakers this year. Is this team now a title team? I don't think so. But can this kind of AD help this team hit the upper echelon, hit the best outcomes that are possible for this team this year and make them harder out? I think this version of AD can be that kind of a difference maker. And I was just so impressed by how he looked against the Wolves.
So if I could push back on your take, right? You're telling me that Anthony Davis's performance is the most important performance from the opening week. And then in the same time, you're saying, well, it's not going to make them a championship contender. So I guess my question to you would be then, who cares?
Sure. That's fair. That's entirely fair.
I would actually argue that it does. Like, if you're getting this, Anthony, like the Lakers look great in that game. I think we are looking at a team that could compete in the West. I think the Western Conference is so good. I also don't think that there's one team in the West that has a stranglehold on the conference that the way that the Celtics do in the East. I think the West is really good. I think that West is also wide open. And I think both of those things could be true at the same time. I think the Lakers are in the mix, man. You've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Why wouldn't you be in the mix? To me, it was weirder that they were not in the mix than when they were in the mix. This is a team that 2 years ago was in the Western Conference Finals when they were basically playing this lineup. And when you were getting an engaged Anthony Davis and LeBron James in that playoff run. I think what J.J. Redick is doing with Anthony Davis is very smart. I think putting him in the triple threat spot, letting him be the hub of the offense, he's an underrated passer and has been for a long time. Last year, Darvin Ham basically used Anthony Davis as just a roller, a finisher. 60% of Anthony Davis's field goal attempts came as a finisher in the pick and roll. That's typical for a guy who is dominant in the pick and roll like Anthony Davis, but I felt like he never really explored the other fringe parts of his game. And that was always the thing missing with the Lakers under Darvin Ham. It was so basic. It was so vanilla, paint by numbers, run the pick and roll. Other teams figured it out. And it just felt like every time down the court, you knew exactly what was going to happen. With J.J. Redick, he's finding ways to tap into other parts of everybody's game, not just Anthony Davis, but watching Rui Hachimura in that opening game was pretty revelatory. I think the way that he's even using a rookie like Dalton Connect, using Austin Reeves and leaning into what it is that Reeves does well as a playmaker, finding ways to get D'Angelo Russell off the ball and lean into his shooting ability, which kind of is marginalized by the fact that he just dribbles the air out of the ball more plays than not. But yeah, I think, Redick, say what you will about the hire or his polarizing personality, I don't think there's any question he's already done a better job at coaching this team than Darvin Ham ever did. This team looks bought in, and Anthony Davis looks energized. And if you're getting that, plus a healthy LeBron season, plus maximizing some of these role players and a little bit more health from the supporting cast, why not? Why shouldn't we talk about the Lakers as a threat to come out of the Western Conference?
I did not want to overreact to one game in that sense. That's really where I'm sort of hedging. I want to see how this sustains over 10 games and like how LeBron looks, how some of the role guys ultimately look, and how frankly Redick coaches. He did all the basic stuff that he hit from day one are the singles we needed to see him hit. I don't know if you saw that clip of him. A lot of Lakers fans on Reddit and X West were posting a clip of him talking in the huddle. And then they were like, a lot of people are then like responding with Darvin Ham in a similar mic'd up situation last year. And like, they were two very different approaches. JJ's, the point with the people were trying to make was that it was more detailed. It was more focused. It was like actual coaching. And then Darvin Ham's was not quite that. That was sort of the
what's so funny about that
there?
stuff too, and I'm not going to doubt like what that investigative reporting yielded, but what's so funny about those sideline clips is that the PR staff for the team actually has to sign off on those before their broadcast, and I do wonder if JJ Redick has told the Lakers PR staff explicitly, hey, grab all the coolest stuff that I'm saying, like the most X's O's nerdy coaching stuff, and make sure you post that because that's part of my brand.
Yeah, if this sounded like it could have been on Mind the Game or Old Man in the Three, then we
PR staff, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, if it's not more about like, hey, good effort out there, if you don't understand what I'm saying, post that one.
Yeah, no, I could absolutely see that, and honestly, that's just good communications work if that's the case.
Sure.
But like AD, I will say this to elevate my take a little bit, Wes, because you're pushing me. And
because the way you presented it for the record is like an if-then statement, right? It's I'm with you. I don't want to overreact and just vault the Lakers into the top of the Western Conference. That's not what I'm doing. But if Anthony Davis is playing like this, then the Lakers, of course, they're part of that conversation.
Anthony Davis can be all NBA and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate if he plays like this consistently.
Mm-hmm.
That is a guy he's that good where he can make them a top 5 seed in the West. And like, if things break the right way, I think that opens a door that I didn't really think was there for them. I'd kind of written off the Lakers, West, in a lot of ways, just because I think so.
You.
Well,
LeBron.
I am Team LeBron, but it's like LeBron's age, first-year head coach. I don't know if I believe in a lot. Like, I still think that they have to figure out a D'Lo trade at some point. I just believe that is a necessity if they're going to maximize this season. AD, it just can come and go a little bit with him. And I think so highly of the upper echelon of the West. It's just like I look at the Nuggets and their track record the last couple of years of just beating the Lakers, frankly. You look at the Wolves, even after the cat trade. You look at the Thunder and all these other teams. It's just such an uphill battle in that conference. But if AD plays like this, and I think adds to it, LeBron actually can take this long, wondered if he would ever do it or could do it, step back where there's less of a burden on him throughout the regular season. If that unlocks that and then he has more energy later, that opens up some doors that I'm quite interested to see what the payoff is.
Yeah, you know what? We've heard about this so long. Like every year, it feels like LeBron is talking about this is the year I take a step back. This is the year I cede a lot of the playmaking.
Did he say that in Miami?
Responsibilities.
Did he talk about that in Miami? Because he talked it like
it was
like Cleveland.
Yeah, it was more of Cleveland when Kyrie was there,
and that was politicking. Yeah,
and
that was like politicking to keep Kyrie happy, though. I think,
but it
wasn't like real.
Like the last 3 years with Anthony Davis, it's all been, hey, I want to give Anthony Davis more of the team, more of the team, more of the team. But the thing is, like they just. Like LeBron ostensibly plays point guard, and Anthony Davis is a big man, and it's just hard to do that. And I think Redick has tapped into something here, which is not unlike what the Sixers tapped into last year with Joel Embiid and what Nikola Jokic has been doing in Denver. It's put this very large human in the middle of the floor and let him go to work. And I think we saw in that first game, LeBron James, like, what do you have? 18 points, like on like 10 shots or something. And
yeah, he had. I'm plugging it right now. So LeBron James, 35 minutes, so still a bunch of minutes, but 16 points, 4 assists, 5 boards, 7 of 16 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3.
So it was an inefficient night, and it didn't even matter.
Nope.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Like that's not the LeBron James experience, where if he has a bad night, the team has a bad night. And the bad nights are hard to come by for LeBron James, certainly. But we'll see how it goes with him. But in terms of the Defensive Player of the Year award stuff too, I don't know. I would be taking everybody's odds other than Victor Wembanyama, and that's not to say that Victor Wembanyama is not going to win it. Like, he obviously is the favorite, but if he doesn't even admit, like, he's such an overwhelming favorite that there's not even a point in betting on him.
No,
there's no point in putting money on it. It's not a good value. And if he misses like the 65 game limit, if he turns an ankle and he's out for 2 weeks, like, that could be it. He could be disqualified from it. And then you got to start looking at the field. And among the guys in the field, Anthony Davis is as good as of a bet as anybody else. So him, Chet, Bam, like all those guys, I would be like, if you want action on Defensive Player of the Year, that's probably the place to sprinkle your money.
Yeah, plus 3,000 at BetMGM for Anthony Davis to win Defensive Player of the Year, and that's long odds. That's long odds. It's long odds, but it's good value, and like half a unit to me on something like that, depending on what your unit size is. I think that makes that's a reasonable risk to take on a long-term play.
And I would argue that Anthony Davis is playing the best defense of his career right now. Yeah. I mean, if you think about those odds compared to where he ranks among the league's best defenders, he's one of the best 5 defensive players in the league, and that's probably selling it short. I do think that Anthony Davis is playing the best basketball, not just defensively, too. I think he's playing the best basketball of his career right now, between what he did in the Olympics and what you saw on opening night. And I just think, a lot of what we've seen in the playoffs the last couple of years, I mean, this guy is at the height of his powers. And I don't know that we discuss that enough about Anthony Davis, because he is sort of the Robin to LeBron's Batman. But it's entirely possible that we're going to see the best Anthony Davis season yet. Like, that's, and I think totally in the cards.
Yeah. And I would say 2 last things on this. Number 1, has not won a Defensive Player of the Year, and I think it's a guy that you would think might just get one at some point, and he's in his prime. He's been all defensive first team 4 times. He's been defensive third team 3 times, all NBA first team 4 times, 3 times block leader, 2-time NBA all second team. He was first team all defense last year, most recently. On the second part of it, I think he's the kind of guy, Wes, because he's like he really is like a defensive first great player. I do sometimes think that kind of great player, it's harder to talk about in a way that is consumable, because it's a little more nuanced, it's less flashy. It's like his great game isn't often going to result in these like amazing highlight clips you can find on Instagram or TikTok or on YouTube, right? Like, he's often like positionally just like altering things in a way, and it's not full Gobert. But it's that same kind of thing where it's like how great he is sometimes can be hard to digest in a reasonable way.
And he has started ramping up the block rate too. I mean, he's getting some swats. I mean, he had this great swat against Gobert in that opening game. I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say with Anthony Davis. Hold on, there was one more point. Oh, Anthony Davis, he does tend to string these games together too, right? Like, Anthony Davis is one of these guys who just has like a week where he looks like the best player in the sport. The next Lakers opponent is the Phoenix Suns. The one after that is the Sacramento Kings. Not a lot of interference for Anthony Davis to go for it. Like Plumlee and Nurkic are not necessarily going to be the best deterrent from Anthony Davis having another 30-point game. And then ditto for whatever the Sacramento Kings defense is. So I think we're looking at maybe a really strong first week from Anthony Davis.
Yeah, and I mean, if he shuts down Sabonis or something,
Oh, yeah.
it's like there's a big dub for him there, and even if he has roles in containing Kevin Durant or Devin Booker on switches and things, it's like I think there's a lot to dive into with him that is interesting. I am curious if he kills it this year. That makes for a much more fun league, and I would like to see AD at the top of his powers. Wes, before we get into our last take, which is going to be about the Orlando Magic from our guy Wes, got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball Show. Got to tell you, too, about our giveaway with Homage. Go on our X account right now. Go on our Instagram right now. You can enter to win on those two platforms. And we're going to be giving away a full New York Liberty championship set from Homage. That is a hoodie, a crew neck. That is a t-shirt for the Liberty Championship, which you can check out the images for in their store or on our socials. And a special edition WNBA Jam Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart title t-shirt. It's all for free from our friends at Homage. All you got to do is go read the rules on our socials, enter, and you could be the lucky winner. Make sure to check out Homaging. And if you want to buy something else, including maybe a heavyweight NFL starter jacket, if you root for a competent NFL franchise, unlike me, go get yourself a jacket. Click the link below. Support the show. Wes, give me your Magic take.
So I have a theme here in terms of just, I guess, I thought Jayson Tatum has been overlooked as a real MVP candidate. I think the Orlando Magic are being overlooked as a playoff team. In fact, here's my take. The Orlando Magic are a lock to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Their defense is going to be top 5 at worst, and Paolo Banchero is here for an all-NBA type season. I was in the arena for their whooping on the Miami Heat on opening night. And I'm telling you, man, the vibe around that team is one of confidence. It's exciting. I think the addition of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is somehow almost been underrated in terms of like the championship equity that he brings to that locker room. And I think you look at a lot of the players in that locker room and they look at KCP as a guy who's been there, done that, and they say, well, now he's with us. He was with the Lakers and did it. He went to the Nuggets and did it. Now he's here. And I don't think they're expecting to win nobody expects them to win the championship this year. I don't think even internally they expect to win the championship this year. But something interesting happened in that Miami Heat game. So during the halftime, they honored Pat Riley. They put his name on the court and they did this long halftime ceremony. It was a little weird, but they did this whole long halftime ceremony to honor Pat Riley and having his name stamped onto the court there. And this is not the first time that the Heat have done like a big halftime celebration of some kind with the Orlando Magic being their opponent on that night. And I heard afterwards that the Magic were kind of pissed about it, that they said, hey, we're not your homecoming opponent. We're not just like this pushover team that you can just rack up wins against anymore. We're not the little brother in the state. We won the Southeast Division last year, in case you forgot. And they came out upset. And they acted like it. And they were more ready than the Miami Heat. And you don't really see that very much. I think Jamal Mosley has that team coached up really well. I think that defense isn't going anywhere. The way that they were able to smother Miami's offense. And look, Miami's offense it was in the bottom 10 last year. It was in the bottom 10 the year before that. But having Jalen Suggs and KCP on the perimeter, and then having the size of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and then they have a bullpen of centers that they can go to. Right? It doesn't even matter if one of them gets into foul trouble. Wendell Carter not having a great night, throw in Mo Wagner. He's not good. Go Jonathan Isaac in a small ball lineup. Like, they have so many different. Goga Batadze can get some run for them and be really physical. So, yeah, I just think that this team is loaded with defensive talent. It's going to be really hard to score against them. And if Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner do what they did on opening night, which is basically combine for whatever it was, 60 points or something on efficient shooting, it's just going to be like that. That to me looks like a team that I think the ceiling is fairly limited based on where they are in their age range, but their floor seems really high because you're just going to be able to rely on their defense and some one-on-one playmaking from Paolo and Franz. When we talk about the Eastern Conference playoff picture, it just feels like we know the top 4 teams in the East, like in that top tier, and then it's like, okay, is it the Pacers? Can they come in? Can they crash the party? Can the Cavaliers crash the party? And it just always felt like the Orlando Magic were overlooked, and I don't think that they should be. I think they should be firmly part of that conversation too.
Wes, that is the team on the schedule that you look at and you groan at because they are a pain to play against. There's nothing fun about playing the Orlando Magic. There's nothing up tempo. There's nothing sexy. There's no room to breathe. And even if you're a defensive team, even if you are a team that can score enough against them, it's like, okay, like they're still going to make it incredibly hard. Jalen Suggs is going to be in your face all game. KCP is one of the smartest defenders in the league. And then your Paolo point is, I think, the key to this whole thing. The way Paolo Banchero can bully, the confidence he played with in that game, when a guy, like, again, it's one game. I think everyone was feeling fresh as a daisy at the start of the season, feeling great, all that stuff. All those caveats aside. I love Wes when I see a guy the first game of the year comes out like a point to prove. That tells me something about what I think we're going to get. There's a number of performances I think we saw across the league in the first week that tells that. I think Tatum had that. I think Anthony Davis had that. I thought Evan Mobley had that against Toronto for Cleveland. And I think Paolo Banchero might have had the most impressive one of all, to just kind of push back against what the Heat are, do exactly what he did, and go 4 of 8 from 3 to kind of to boot on top of the bully ball he was playing. That was just about as impressive as a 3-level scoring game as we've ever seen from Paolo. That's such a good sign for, I think, where he's at. And again, I think the floor, I think, for them, West, because of their defense, is really high. I still... The taste of their offense not being where it needs to be a great team is still in my... It's like still that bad taste is in my mouth because of how they lost in the playoffs last year. If they could have scored just moderately more efficiently in the playoffs last year, they would have made the second round. They couldn't do it. There's still a leap to take there. But at the floor for them, particularly as a regular season team, to be a potentially top 3, top 4 seed, have on court in the first round is absolutely there because that defense is such a pain in the ass to deal with.
It really helps that they shot 37% from 3 last night, right?
But that's why that's why KCP is a great addition, because if the formula is not changing, you get a great team defender, smart guy, veteran, all the things that are key to your culture already, and he can shoot. It's not like they got a piece that didn't add to their identity and they're going to have to change it. It's like they got pretty much the perfect role guy to add to their identity already.
And that might be my favorite thing about the Magic is for such a young team, they have such a great feel for who they are. They have a very strong sense of identity for a team that feels like they're very much still building, right? And I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is they locked up Franz, they locked up Jalen Suggs right before the deadline. They locked up all their centers. They added KCP, who is, like you said, is a perfect fit for their identity. Paolo is going to get the max extension probably here. And if he makes an All NBA, could be eligible for the Supermax. So you got all these guys who know who they are, but also know where they stand within the organization because they're all under contract now. And I think that's a big part of what a team can do is they have a strong sense of identity. There's a strong sense of what the pecking order is in Orlando. Also, everybody kind of knows, hey, it's Paolo and it's Franz. It's those guys on offense. Defensively, we're all on a string and we're all doing it. I think at the center spot, even though there's a lot of bodies there, I think everybody knows where they stand and what their role is there. And so, yeah, this is a team that I think should be taken very seriously. Now, when I say that they could crash the party of, like with Cleveland and Indiana and maybe one of those teams getting into that top 4, what I mean by that is I'm not picking the Magic to come out of the East. Like, I don't think that they're even close to that conversation. They're not nearly good enough. But I also don't think that the top 4 teams that we think of, like qualitatively in the East, are going to be the top 4 teams in the standings. I think you could see Philadelphia drop out of that. I think you could see the Knicks drop out of that. Who knows? Like the Milwaukee Bucks are one Giannis turned ankle away from falling to the 5th or 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, right? And so I do think one of these teams, like the Indianas, the Clevelands, the Orlandos, maybe even a Miami Heat team, is going to find their way into a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. I just think that the Orlando Magic have a really good chance to do it because they are durable. They have a really high-level defense, and I think their offense will be just better enough where I think they're just going to be in a lot of these games.
They also just, again, I think beating a team like Miami on night 1, a place I think they hadn't. I remember reading something. I can't remember exactly how long it been, but they hadn't won in Miami in quite a long time, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been a minute.
For them to get in there, I'm going to find this as we're going here, but to do that on night one, and to your point was just get like pissed off about the Pat Riley thing. It's like, kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that was the case.
Yeah, that team has a personality, man. Like they're tough to play against, like you said earlier. And when you bring that to every single game, they have kind of built themselves in the mold of the Miami Heat. And Jamal Mosley has been pretty open about it. I mean, he goes out of his way to praise sort of Heat culture, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, and everything that was built in Miami. And I think when he was hired in Orlando, he looked at Miami as sort of a model, and he's doing a great job of it.
They'd lost 9 in a row
Yeah,
against the Miami on the road against the Jimmy Butler led Miami Heat. So that's like for them to elevate and like get that has to feel like, Wes, you and I've been in locker rooms enough and talked to guys after some of these games. Stuff like that like maybe seems trivial, but like that does matter. Like it does give these teams like really big confidence boosts. You just have that off their back. Like it just is a big deal.
Yeah, it's little brother going in and beating big brother. Like it's the first time, your kid beats you in a game of basketball or something. You're like, oh my God, like things are about to change. And now I don't know that that's going to happen, right? I didn't think it was the Heat's best effort on opening night or anything like that, but the Magic are the reigning Southeast Division champs, right? They have the belt, and then they came in and they kept it. And I do think that that's big for a young team. In terms of our takes,
I just want to say I did like that you refer to the division title as a thing that like absolutely everyone cares about. That was good.
It does matter to the Magic, who have not won it in a really long time. I will say that. In terms of our takes today, did we knock all three of them out of the park? 3 good takes?
I think I would say this. I think I'm very hard on myself, but I would give myself like a 6.5 out of 10 on execution. I think the idea was there, but it's it's week 1. Like I am kind of like John Morant getting back into my flow. Like or who's like the most disappointing. I'm the Detroit Pistons having 6 guys on the floor. Like
then I'm
yeah.
Then I'm betting on you, Chris. Then I'm betting on you, man.
Yeah,
I got
that's
the
right.
over
Yeah,
on
that's right.
you.
That's right. We're figuring things out. I think obviously I'm not quite as behind as like the Wizards or some of these teams that have, they haven't played it, but they didn't deserve that. They haven't played a game yet. But it's like the Raptors did look pretty bad on opening night. Like the Knicks obviously came out really bad, and there's a lot of Mikal Bridges shot doctors on the internet right now, which is just always a fun place to be on the internet. Like
something to monitor for sure.
I have a hard. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm curious, and don't spoil it here, because it's probably something that you can use in the future. I am curious what your Cavaliers take was. So for those who are unacquainted, we posted a poll on Twitter and on our YouTube communities page and asked you, do you want to hear about the Magic or the Cavaliers for our third take? So what we're going to be doing is you'll have a take, I'll have a take. We'll both approach the show with one strong take that we feel strongly about, and then we'll have a second take, but then it'll be up to the audience to decide what take they're going to go with, and sort of it pits me and Chris against each other, which is always fun. That makes for good podcasting. And I was actually very surprised that it was sort of overwhelmingly people wanted my take over your take, and they didn't know it was my take. They just knew it was the Magic. I wonder if the Magic got that kind of shine.
I wonder, because they were when Brendan was doing the show, we did do the Magic as like our planning the flag team for a stretch. So I feel like we might have some Magic fans like in our subscriptions. Might have some.
That makes sense, because usually the Magic are like the last choice for a lot of NBA observers. But very curious to know what your Cavaliers take would have been. Again, don't spoil it. We don't have to do it. That's the magic of the mystery. Leave them wanting more.
Just say optimist. I'm pretty optimistic, I would say.
That's not surprising.
No. Well, no, Wes, I feel like I come across more positive about the Cavs, but like that is really like a post not covering the team on a daily basis thing, because I was the biggest. Ask the people I worked with if you're the Sword and it locked down. I was such a Cavs and particularly Kobe Altman hater for like a long time. I was just such a skeptic. But I would say the optimism is really an Evan Mobley, Kenny Atkinson thing. There's something going on there that I was like, oh, okay.
There's certainly something going on there. Evan Mobley, he is somebody that will probably come up in one of these takes going forward.
Yeah, he's looking quite good. Toronto Raptors?
Their court looks great. The
jersey,
NBA Cup court looks great. That's going to go with the jerseys. Hats off to the Toronto Raptors. You won all the alternative courts and jersey designs. You're not going to win anything else this year, but you got that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But that's going to be it for the Just Basketball Show for Friday, October 25th. We'll be back next week. Again, we're going to, a little bit earlier than we did this time, but we're going to put 2 takes up. Don't know which one it's from, on Twitter, on our YouTube channel. You can vote on it, help us pick what we're going to talk about here on the show. So be sure to tune in for that and help us get after it and let us give you the content you want to watch and listen to. But until next time, I'm Chris Manning. That's Wes Goldberg. Enjoy the hoops. We'll talk to you at the beginning of next week, week 2 of the NBA season.